world of deceit, telling the truth is a revolutionary act. It's the David Knight Show.
As the clock strikes 13, it's Wednesday, the 12th of August, year of our Lord 2026. Well, I've mentioned many times the book Raven Rock. The subtitle is The Plan to Save Themselves and Let the Rest of Us Die. They call that national security. They call that continuity of government. I call it the Trump regime. Because this type of attitude characterizes everything that Donald Trump does. He is the ultimate expression of the elitism and arrogance and corruption of the deep state that leads us into one war after the other and does nothing except protecting themselves. We got an amazing story about what Trump did on his return from Turkey today, but it's just one example. And we're going to have some of the latest outrages from the AI demon that has been summoned by Elon Musk and others. He said we're summoning the demon, and he's right. We'll talk about that, as well as the arrogance, the corruption, and the lies. We'll be right back. Stay with us. You know, we go back to the Cold War. Remember, we had other countries would build civil defense shelters, whether or not they would work. They would at least attempt to do that for their population. What did we get during the Cold War? We were told, if you see a big flash as you're evacuating the city or whatever, get out of your car and get into a ditch. Yeah, that should help. Or if you're a child, put your head in the desk. Even as children, we used to joke about that. What do they want, our dental records? It doesn't make any sense. Well, we see a good example of this with Donald Trump. He's out playing golf, and he's got apparently some, well, we know that he has some assassination threats that are made against him, against Iran. Kind of what happens when one mafia family does hit jobs on another family. It's the Tartagas versus the Corleones, right? And so this is the way Donald Trump plays golf now. He has a AN/TWQ-1 Avenger positioned near the fairway. This is an anti-missile system. You see the truck there and the anti-missiles that are there to protect him from any incoming drones, an air missile system. And that's the second and final stage of defense for him. He also has jets that are F-16 fighter jets flying overhead, temporary flight restrictions, intercepted a lot of different planes coming in. And going back to that picture, look at this. He's also got concertina wire there on the golf course. I guess that's a kind of golfing hazard, right? Try to hit the ball when it lands inside that concertina wire.
How much is this costing the American taxpayers?
Exactly.
You would think if you really cared about America, you could put your hobby on hold for 4 years to run the free world.
You'd think that maybe you would adjust your policies if you were so hated by so many people who want to try to kill you. I think back when I see something like this, he's out there playing golf by himself with a battery of anti-missile things and concertina wires surrounding him. I think back to the HBO, I think it was HBO did the thing with John Adams. And at one point, John Adams and Thomas Jefferson are walking down the street together, conversing about something. I don't even remember what they were talking about. What I remembered was the fact that they're walking down the streets of Washington and nobody's paying any attention to them. And they don't have a phalanx of soldiers and snipers and all the rest of the stuff. They don't have a bulletproof carriage. Nobody was trying to kill them because they weren't trying to kill other people. They weren't trying to rob other people. They weren't trying to subjugate, surveil other people. They were not hated, right? They may not have been liked. People might have disagreed with their policies, but they weren't doing things that made people want to kill them. Maybe they should try that approach. We've talked about that with the state of Israel, for example. After they did Gaza, and have done it now for several years, they have gotten so much blowback from the public, and rightfully so, that their propaganda ministry that was funded with $7 million is now over $700 million. So instead of increasing your propaganda to tell people how wonderful you are and how you are the quote unquote most moral army in the world. That's what Satan Yahoo says. What a laughable lie that is. Anyway, rather than spending $700 million to try to propagandize people, instead of trying to take over social media, instead of trying to destroy the First Amendment, why don't you fix the problem? Why don't you stop killing people? That would be an idea, wouldn't it? But again, this is just rival mafia factions. There's not a good guy in this fight. These are just organized crime lords who've taken over countries, whether you're talking about the Ayatollah or whether you're talking about Trump. They're the same thing. They're just mafia figures, crime lords. So the missile defense system deployed nearby is F-16s scrambled above. So he's got jets above. He's got missile systems following him. He's got concertina wires. This guy is living a life of fear. That's one thing we can think about. At least that's the payback. He's always looking over his shoulder. He's like an escaped convict or an unprosecuted murderer. He's always looking over his shoulder. He doesn't fear God, but he does fear the consequences from his fellow man. And so another example of this that just came out. Remember when Trump went to the NATO meeting in Turkey and he had the new plane, the new Air Force One that was gifted by Qatar, right? And they supposedly retrofitted it with all the security stuff. And we were told that he had to switch planes because it wasn't sufficiently outfitted enough with all the latest protections and everything. And so he flew on the old Air Force One. Well, actually, he didn't. There's a good bit of deception involved. And so he was very angry about the fact that the media had said that the other plane was not ready. He said, "Oh, it's great. It's a great plane." But he didn't take it. Why was that? Well, it turns out that the reporters have put two and two together, and they've had some inside sources, and it's first reported by the Washington Post, but a lot of media outlets have picked this up because it is so characteristic of the character of Donald Trump. Trump secretly switched planes in Turkey amid security concerns, official says. And that's not the worst of it. The worst of it is that he used his staff and reporters as decoys without their knowledge. So again, we're back to the plan to save themselves and let the rest of us die. That's why I say he is the perfect example of this. And you know, the interesting thing in that book was the person as he's exposing all this, and I've seen this over and over again when people write the history of DARPA or a lot of these other government criminal agencies. They say, well, it's not like this anymore. You know, we don't do MK Ultra anymore, right? Oh, it's so much worse today than it was back then, actually. But they would actually say that. Well, you know, this is the way the government really was back then. We can see that now, 60, 70 years later. But that's not the way the government is today. Today, you can trust your government. We have reformed it all, and it's now trustworthy, right? No. Trump secretly slipped out of Turkey last month on an alternate military plane, which he boarded while hidden inside a catering truck as part of an elaborate ruse prompted by an Iranian threat. Everything that he does is a ruse. Everything that he does is a lie. And he's been mocked. Some people say, hey, did you get this idea from Taylor Swift? Allegedly, she did something like that. But it was very deliberate and very planned. Trump had flown to Turkey on the new plane that's gifted by Qatar. He meant to be used as Air Force One. But they announced that they would fly on the older presidential plane, which CNN and others had previously reported was due to security concerns. That apparently was part of the subterfuge. After boarding the older aircraft, a moment that was caught on camera, Trump secretly got off via a catering vehicle, and he moved to a smaller Air Force C-32A. That and the older presidential Air Force One and the new one, all three of them took off for the UK. Once there, Trump got on board the new Qatari gifted plane and flew home. For the last month, much of the public discussion about the plane swap has been centered on the security capabilities of the Qatari donated plane. Trump had boasted about the new aircraft, and he seethed about the coverage of its deficiencies. But now attention is likely to shift to the reporters and the staffers who were unknowingly flying on a decoy plane to save him. Again, he used them as decoys to save himself. So what happened was, as they got on the plane, he got on Air Force One with them, and he comes out and he makes an appearance to them. And then the Secret Service comes out and tells the reporting pool, you need to keep your window shades pulled down. They thought, that's strange. That's never happened before. They thought it was extraordinarily unusual. Trump would later say that it was, quote, because you're probably on a dangerous flight because of the sleazebags. Him. That would be him, right? The sleazebag Trump. So a supplemental pool note from ABC's Michelle Stoddard on Tuesday said that as the Secret Service was very eager to remind everybody in the media pool to keep the shades closed, and when a photographer attempted to lift one of the shades, he was quickly told to lower it again. When they inquired with the White House staff about why, they only said, well, this is a request from the Secret Service. Video shows what appears to be a catering truck parked next to Air Force One during that time, about 7 minutes before the aircraft began taxiing. And so what happens is they come in, they tell all the reporters, pull the shades down, leave them down, don't lift those shades up. They don't want them to see Trump getting out of the plane secretly and getting into a catering truck and getting into the other plane. So the plane was wheels down in England at 10:30 p.m. local time. It wasn't until roughly 20 minutes later that the pool notified the news networks that an underwing shot, camera angle from underneath the wing of the plane, was being set up to capture the president deplaning. And again, what they do with these press pools, they don't want to have all the different organizations reporting and covering it and videoing it. So what they do is they take turns. So this time it's your turn to be the provider to the pool of all the footage or the interviews or that type of thing. But they said it was an unusually long period of time, enough that Trump theoretically would have been able to get off the smaller plane and then back onto the Air Force One before the cameras could capture it. For comparison, CNN was part of the pool on Sunday when it took roughly 8 minutes between wheels down and the underwing shot to be established. This time, remember, it took 20 minutes. Trump was seen stepping off of Air Force One about 1 minute after the pool alerted that the underwing shot was up. The timing was notably faster than what typically happens. And the pool showed the stair car already in position, the aircraft door already open when the pool shot came up. There also appeared to be more security personnel on the tarmac than CNN crews were accustomed to seeing. During the flight on the Qatari gifted plane, Trump was asked, so after they all get on they go to England after this, and then they all get on the new Air Force One, and he is on the plane. He talks to them. He was asked about that. Why did we do that? And why did they tell us to take the shades down? Trump said the change was to give U.S. service members stationed at the British base a chance to tour the aircraft. Again, an implausible lie. They're not going to let people tour Air Force One. That did not happen. Pressed on whether there were other issues, he quickly responded, no issues. Trump was also asked why reporters have been instructed to lower the shades. He said, it's because you're probably on a dangerous flight. He said, they didn't ask me to close mine, but if they did, I would have done it. Well, they didn't ask him to close his because he snuck out and he was on another plane, right? So he said, but listen to this. He says, but if I go, you go too, right? Perhaps someday you'll want to change professions. Yeah, perhaps one day you might remember that if you decide that you're going to be paparazzi for a mafia criminal figure like Don, then maybe you should get a different job. I would never want to be on that job.
If we lost all of them in one go, I'd just be so sad. I'd be weeping and tearing my clothes.
Lose the press and the president at the same time.
What a horrible day that would be. The mind reels.
Yeah. Air Force One's escape while leaving journalists on a decoy flight sparks an online media fury. So this is the character of Trump, folks, and it is the character of the U.S. government. Remember, going back to the mid-20th century, this is the way the national security state operates. They don't give a flip about you, certainly not about the press that they hate. They don't care about Americans. They use us all the time. They enslave us. They spy on us. They desire to control and to kill us and our children. When you go back and you look at this disgusting debate over Trump's executive order, first of all, it's just a head fake. There's nothing there. It's a nothing burger. It's virtue signaling. He's not ending the childhood vaccine schedule. As a matter of fact, you look at it, they tell everybody, oh, well, we had 18 vaccines. No, they were injecting people for 18 different diseases, but they had 96 shots. I mean, they're doing this about 4 times on average for each disease, over and over and over again. Does your vaccine work or not? Or are you just trying to maximize your profits and you don't care what harm you do to children? I think that's what it is. And we all know that's what it is. And so now they're going to reduce it from 18 diseases to 11. But if they keep up the same type of thing, you'll still have about 44, 45 of these things. And it isn't even the distance between these things. It's giving it to children when they can't handle it, when they're infants and their body can't handle the aluminum and the other adjuvants and preservatives that are put into the vaccines. Nevertheless, when you look at this, guess what? Trump had a partner in all this, War Pete. So the two people who lied us into a war, who did it unilaterally without a constitutional declaration, when things start to blow back, what do? They sneak out and save themselves and leave everybody else to die, including their own White House staff. It's not just the reporters that they hate. It's also their White House staff. So Hegseth joined Trump on the smaller aircraft to get out of Turkey and to get to Britain. Both of them, they start the war and they run away. So Trump said, and Trump in the White House lied about which plane Trump was on, flying out of Turkey, setting up journalists who thought that they were on the same plane as the president to possibly be the target of an Iranian attack, while he secretly departed on a different one with War Pete. Yeah, well, it says it all, doesn't it? You know, you're so confident of your military superiority and how you own the air that the two of you have to sneak out using a catering truck and an alternate plane. They're disgusting. What disgusting slime they are. In other words, everyone aboard the real plane, the crew, the guests, the press pool, the White House staff, were considered to be expendable, said one person. Another one says Trump was ready to let you die while he secretly made his escape. Ned Price, who was former State Department spokesperson under Biden, said, while safeguards are necessary at times, this was unique to this White House, he said. The decision to lie to reporters at that time and let them be used as decoys is something that we have not seen even other presidents do.
Some of you may die, but it's a sacrifice I am willing to make.
That's right. That pretty much sums it up, doesn't it? That is your national security state, folks, in a nutshell. Thank you, Travis. I wonder, what is that? NBC News senior justice reporter Ryan Riley, meanwhile, joked that the catering cart maneuver appeared to be borrowed from Taylor Swift. One person said, this makes Trump look like both a liar and a scared little wimp. Well, that's because he is both a liar and a scared little wimp.
I can't wait to hear what Gerald has to say about this later.
The mental image of Trump hiding from Iran in a catering cart is devastating. A weak, stupid old man hiding from the consequences of his own decision while he endangers others. And I would say while he endangers, folks, the world. It's not just one plane with some of his own staff and reporters. It's the entire world that he is endangering with all this stuff. Meanwhile, you got MAGA pundits coming out like Stephen Miller's wife, Katie Miller, slamming the journalist who reported this. You know, you shouldn't know that your emperor has no clothes and no courage, right? He fumed that the story had been leaked in the first place. How dare you show this guy as a feckless coward and a liar? You should never say that about him. And then we have Scott Jennings, the guy who is constantly channeling Mitch McConnell with his apparent seances or whatever. Given the ongoing and very serious threats to the president's life, I'm glad that our security teams did whatever it took, including the extraordinary cloak and dagger maneuvers to keep him safe during international travel, said Scott Jennings. And same guy that's telling us that I guess he's going to tell us that he's spoken to Mitch McConnell. Mitch McConnell feels the same way. Yeah. That's why journalists have been ordered to close their window shades before departing. He said, yeah, if I go, you go, right? So perhaps you should change professions, and maybe you shouldn't hang around this guy. Well, when you look at what is happening in the Trump war, the Trump oil embargo, as I prefer to call it, the TOE, the TOE. Trump teased a deal to open Hormuz tomorrow, and of course that was Scott Bessent who said that last Friday. He said, well, today or tomorrow, in other words, last Friday or last Saturday. It's now been about a week, okay? And what is the sticking point for this? Well, a lot of it is compensation that Iran wants. But, and I think, quite frankly, when we create a war of aggression, I think it is deserved. But Trump has come out and said, no, I'm the one that needs to be compensated. And so the Babylon Bibi said, Trump demands compensation from Iranian girls' school that broke 2 of his Tomahawk missiles. That pretty much sums it up, folks. That's what we're talking about here. And just remember, this is the same guy. There was somebody else had a meme up. It might have been the Babylon Bibi. They had so-and-so moderates a debate between 2015 Trump and 2026 Trump. Trump debates himself. This is what he said a few years ago about the Iran war.
Nancy Pelosi, the speaker.
Well, you know, when she first got in and was named speaker, I met her, and I'm very impressed by her. I think she's a very impressive person. I like her a lot. But I was surprised that she didn't do more in terms of Bush and going after Bush. It was almost, it just seemed like she was going to really look to impeach Bush and get him out of office, which personally I think would have been a wonderful thing.
Impeaching him?
Absolutely, for the war. For the war.
Because of the conduct of the
war. Well, he
war.
lied. He got us into the war with lies. And, I mean, look at the trouble Bill Clinton got into with something that was totally unimportant. And they tried to impeach him, which was nonsense. And yet Bush got us into this horrible war with lies, by lying, by saying they had weapons of mass destruction, by saying all sorts of things that turned out not to be true.
Oh, the hypocrisy is just stunning, isn't it?
Talk to the
That's his
for a minute.
That's his King David moment, isn't it? You know, I guess Wolf Blitzer was his Nathan. At one point, you know, after King David commits adultery with Bathsheba, then has her husband killed, Nathan comes to him with a theoretical thing and tells him about a shepherd who did a certain thing. It's very similar to that. And David is outraged, and he said, that guy should die. And then Nathan says, you are that man. So that's Trump's King David and Nathan moment. He just pronounced sentence on himself, quite frankly. Yes, you should be impeached. You should be jailed. You have been a complete failure, morally, legally, constitutionally, and strategically. How many other ways could he fail? There's probably some other ones that I haven't thought of, but he certainly has checked every one of those boxes. So this is from Reason Magazine. They say, Iran declared on Saturday that it would only allow the Strait of Hormuz to reopen with a permanent end to the war, an end to the U.S. blockade, and financial sanctions on Iran, and to end those, and to also have financial compensation. Now, Reason says that the first 2 of those points were in the Memorandum of Understanding, but not the third one. They said that is a new demand. That's not exactly true. If you remember, one of the things that created a lot of consternation with people was that there was $300 billion to be given to Iran for reconstruction. Now, they claimed, the Trump administration claimed, that that was not reparations. And they said, it's not going to be coming from us. We're going to put together a deal where all these different businesses are going to go in and do that. Well, that was a lie. That was just a fantasy. And then you had J.D. Vance come out and say, well, no, all that money, as part of the deal, all that money has got to be spent on American goods. And they've got to use that $300 billion to buy food from American farmers and on and on. None of that was true. None of that was in the Memorandum of Understanding. They're just making this stuff up as they go along because they're liars. Everything they do is a lie. And so it's not a new demand at all. One of the ways that he could save face, since this is a sticking point, since reparations are a sticking point in the Strait of Hormuz, one of the things he could do, but he won't do, is to just say, all right, you can charge people as they go through the strait. And that would allow them to get that money back. The reality is that when you look at the Strait of Hormuz, it's only 21 miles across. That's not as far away as Catalina is from the coast of California. It's 26 miles across the sea as well. Remember the song, right? We have a claim that we own all territorial waters from 200 miles away from our shore everywhere. So we have a claim about our own territorial waters that is 10 times greater than Iran. And that would not be the only situation where people have exacted a toll for going through a strait that is natural, that is not man-made. In other words, a lot of people look at things like the Panama Canal, for instance. If it is Panama Canal or Suez Canal, if a lot of money has been spent to create that, then it is legitimate to charge people to go through that. A lot of people say, but this is a natural boundary here. But we do have examples of that being done in other places. And so as Reason points out, the situation in the strait itself is the same that it's been for the last few months. Iran is insisting that it has a right to route shipping through the Iranian-controlled corridor. And if the ships do not follow that, they will shoot at the ships that do not comply. Now, why would they do that? I mean, are they just rascals? If you were in their position, wouldn't you do that as well? I mean, if you've got a situation where you've been repeatedly sneak attacked, where you've been lied to, where they use negotiations as an opportunity to do a sneak attack, when they've assassinated your leaders and all other kinds of underhanded backstabbing things, wouldn't you think that, well, if they don't follow this route that we have set them up for that is far away from it could be an attack, right? I imagine it is a defensive line in the sand they're not willing to give up. Oil flows were around 5 million barrels on Friday, down from 20 million barrels the day before the war. So it's down to about a quarter of what it was. Another data firm reports that only 32 ships transited the strait over the weekend, 17 of which used the Iranian corridor. So about half of them are going through and not using that, and kind of helped by the U.S. military. But Roy Johnson, a member of the Commodity Context, wrote that even the current level of U.S.-backed dark transits, sneaking in, he said that is unsustainable, simply because not enough empty tankers are getting into the Persian Gulf. So this is, as we talked about, it's a plan for Trump to do whatever he wants, and he doesn't care what the consequences are for other people, whether it's his staff on the plane or whether it's the global economy. He really doesn't care. Trump has threatened Iran with extreme escalation, only to back down multiple times. Most recently, last week, after being told by his generals they simply don't have enough ammunition to protect U.S. troops. Trump has been able to strike peace deals that are acceptable to the U.S. and Iran on paper. However, he's not been able to follow through with these, largely because of domestic U.S. politics. No, it's not because of that. Any concessions run into emotionally charged opposition from Zionists, not from domestic politics.
I'll fight them to the last American. Die for Israel.
Yeah, that's exactly what we're talking about. The April ceasefire agreement had promised an end to the war, including Israel's campaign in southern Lebanon, but faced with Israeli pushbacks. It's not domestic. This is Israeli. Everybody in the U.S. wants this to stop. I mean, even the Republicans would like to see this albatross taken off of their neck, but he's not doing it. Trump, because Israel pushed back against Lebanon, quickly attempted to change the deal to exclude Lebanon. Lebanon was a part of the deal. But actually, we have a government that has been corruptly bought by a foreign country. Everybody understands that now. Each time Iranian leaders have come back to the table demanding more concessions up front while escalating their own harassment of Hormuz shipping. We'll be right back.
Exposing free speech to free minds. It's the David Knight Show.
Hello, it's me, Volodymyr Zelensky. I'm so tired of wearing these same t-shirts everywhere for years. You'd think with all the billions I've skimmed off America, I could dress better. And I could, if only David Knight would send me one of his beautiful gray MacGuffin hoodies or a new black t-shirt with the MacGuffin logo in blue. But he told me to get lost. Maybe one of you American suckers can buy me some at thedavidknightshow.com. You should be able to buy me several hundred. Those amazing sand-colored microphone hoodies are so beautiful. I'd wear something other than green military cosplay to my various galas and social events. If you want to save on shipping, just put it in the next package of bombs and missiles coming from the USA.
Well, you know, this reflecting pool thing just keeps going on and on. We have seen the pictures of the guy that Trump gave this no bid contract to, and he looks like he's straight out of casting for Dick Tracy movie. He's got the cigar and all the rest of the stuff. Looks like a cartoon villain. And we've had Jeanine Pirro been called to the White House. Trump is furious at her for dropping the charges against David Hearn, the former Olympian canoeist who touched the water. Trump wants to project this failure onto somebody else so badly that he's now talking about the White House, the Trump White House, wants the Department of Justice to charge him again. And his lawyer is quite frankly furious about this. And it is ridiculous. Even after his own representative there, even after Pirro says that there's no basis here and she's cleared him, how in the world does he think that's going to win? He's just blinded by his own ego. We're talking about ego politics in the war. We're talking about egonomics here at home, the tariffs and these other things. But really, I think it is kind of ironic that this is at the reflecting pool, isn't it? You know, you've had the group that has in the past done statues on the mall to mock Trump. They put up a statue of Trump and Epstein, you know, best friends forever type of thing. They put up a trophy depot where they said, please leave your peace awards for Donald Trump. If he gets enough of these, maybe he'll call off the war. Well, I think they need to set up another statue. I think they should do this statue at the reflecting pool. Basically, Trump dressed as in a Greek toga on his hands and knees, looking into the pool just like he was Narcissus, right? That is, that is what this thing really has become, a reflection of his ego and his character. So the lawyer for this, when this came out, he said, look, the prosecution has admitted that it relied on claims from the Department of the Interior that the damage was caused entirely by vandals, including Hearn. However, after the indictment, the Department of the Interior then, quote, provided additional documents that revealed the damage was a result of a botched installation and not vandalism, as initially represented by the Department of the Interior. And why does Trump want to cover that up? Because he gave this guy a no-bid contract. In addition to dropping the felony charges against Hearn, Pirro's office moved to dismiss 3 other misdemeanor cases charging people with similar accusations of vandalizing the pool. However, Trump has continued to rage about the dismissal of the case. And we're still waiting to hear the announcement about her firing, aren't we? So he falsely claimed that there is video evidence of the vandalism being committed, and he has made one false claim, one lie after the other about the pool, 300-foot gash and all the rest of this stuff. Meanwhile, he and his entourage drove their vehicles down the pool when it was under construction. Yeah, it wouldn't be that, would it? His lawyer says this is outrageous, in all uppercase, bringing back a case that the Department of Justice lost by its own admission and that it lacked any evidence to convict. He said this is a sad chapter in the DOJ's history, another bizarre turn to further harass an innocent man. And why? Because of Trump's ego. In a later tweet, he was cheered by efforts by Jamie Raskin to investigate the prosecution. Democrats have sent letters to the DOJ and DOI seeking records for the case, including if prosecutors were duped to bring charges to cover up a botched renovation charge. So this guy was hit with a felony charge, he said, over failing paint. The government's own engineer had flagged that 8 days earlier. But again, that is the mafia don and his ego, the narcissist, right? There he is right there. That is a true picture of Trump. As this article from Global Research says, Trump is far more corrupt and dangerous than some corporate media portray him. Think about the things that he said. A whole civilization will die tonight, and I will kill it. If that is not an admission of an intent to commit a war crime, and when you look at that and look at what he's actually done, he is a war criminal. Certainly is a war criminal in Venezuela, attacking boats they don't know have drugs on them, and then even after that, compounding it by circling back and executing people who are non-combatants in the first place, but then executing the survivors as they're flailing in the water. That is your government, Americans. That's what our government is doing. What will they do to you and your family? The first time, he said, the first term, I had two things to do. I had to run the country and survive. He said, now the second term, I run the country and the world, says Trump. His niece, Mary Trump, said if he thinks he's going down, he's going to try to take the rest of us down with him. That seems to be the case, doesn't it? This is beyond the fact that he has serious character flaws and vices, such as his dictatorial, confrontational, bullying, and manipulative temperament. That's just part of this. For Trump, lying has become an obsession. He's a politician who lies not just occasionally, but constantly in his daily rants. This allows him to live in a childish fantasy world. Yeah, just look at the memes put out by him in his White House. The fact that he would lie about everything, and I used to always say this about the Clintons. I said they will lie when the truth would serve them better. Talked about that with the illegitimate child of Bill Clinton. I said, just think about that. If he owned up to it, and if he did the right thing, especially because the child was half black, he would be a hero to his own people, especially. But instead, he gave the guy the cold shoulder, Danny Williams. And even after years of having the Highway Patrol drop off a significant cash gift every Christmas, they just dropped them completely because, and it's probably at Hillary Clinton's suggestion. But again, the truth would serve them better in so many cases, and it would serve Trump better in many cases, even when he's doing the wrong thing. But he will always lie. For any leader, of that matter, who loses touch with reality, this is a major flaw that has tragic consequences. And we're going to see these consequences continue to build. He distorts reality. He invents serious accusations and claims because intellectual corruption often precedes financial corruption. This may explain why Trump does not have much respect for the Constitution and why he has been so openly corrupt. As a matter of fact, if you go back and look at, I should try to get them, I don't know if they'd come on or not, they're New York Times reporters, but Maggie Haberman and Jonathan Swan, I should get them to come on and talk about their book, Regime Change, Inside the Imperial Presidency of Donald Trump. It's nearly 500 pages. So they've got a lot of stuff in there. And when they said the negative stuff, remember, Trump, instead of denying it, he started making claims about how he was going to get the people who told about this stuff. I'm going to get even with those guys. They said, in summary, this is a period that is unprecedented in our lifetime. The use of authoritarian and corrupt power and how he and a small group of people prepared for it and the events that drove all of this. Well, one of Trump's first corrupt decisions during and immediately after the 2024 election was, of course, to accept hundreds of millions of dollars from a few billionaires like Elon Musk and the Las Vegas Edelson family, right? And so he appointed Howard Lutnick, for example, Secretary of Commerce. After Lutnick gave him $9 million, he has openly sold pardons and on and on. Just look at the amount of money that he's done in his cryptocurrency grifts. And yet, when we look at the corruption in Washington, it is not just limited to Trump. And of course, it's not just limited to the GOP party, but it continues in the GOP. And I guess the poster child for all this has become Mitch McConnell and all the claims about him still being alive, which I don't believe for a moment. I really don't. And I don't have the letter here, but I got an email from Handy again. He said, well, you're right about this, the fact that when they do CPR for a very long time like that, especially on an elderly person who's in frail condition like Mitch McConnell obviously was, that is a very serious thing. Typically will break ribs and other things like that because you're trying to keep the person alive when you do that. So it'd be the worst kind of malpractice for these guys to do CPR on him for an extended period of time and to call for extraordinary life support when they found him unconscious, and then to put down on their log, on their side of it, cardiac arrest. And yet the staff comes out later and says, oh, no, he just had a fall and he's recovering and he's in rehab and all the rest of the stuff. Look, they've gone from Weekend with Bernie to The Sixth Sense. I see dead people talking to me. Scott Jennings came back again with another tall tale of speaking to Mitch McConnell. He said he found the Republican in an improving position. Yeah, every day we see another video of somebody in Mitch McConnell's staff. These people are making, over $200,000 a year. And people will ask them questions. How's he doing? Tell us a little bit about his condition. Why can't we see him? Why can't we hear him? And they just keep walking. They smile and, this is a game, isn't it? They won't say anything. They won't even say, well, he's doing fine. They don't want to get on record. What does that tell you? And so every day we see another one of those videos while the reporters ask them questions, they stay silent, refusing to speak. The strange case of Mitch McConnell, where the living are silent, but the dead man speaks. That's really what we're seeing here with Mitch McConnell. I see dead people talking here.
It truly is amazing, just the level of farce we're engaging in as a country.
And the utter contempt that they have for us when they lie to our faces like that.
The PSYOPs used to have some flair to them. They used to be kind of believable. And now they don't even try. You know, back in my day, we got a better type of PSYOP. They put some real effort in. Can't even get that from them anymore.
They don't even bother to do a false flag attack. I guess we should be grateful for that.
I've coined a new term for it, by the way. It's PSY-slop instead of a PSYOP. They're not putting in any effort. They're just churning these things out one after the other.
Yeah, it's just arrogance. That's how it's open criminality. As Trump said, he realized in his first term, hey, people don't really care. I can just steal all this money. I can do whatever I wish and dare people to stop me and see if Congress or the judicial system will stop him. And they don't. As a matter of fact, you've got Andy Beshear, who's the governor, the Democrat governor of Kentucky, said, well, if he supposedly had a 17-minute conversation with Scott Jennings, he can call in and have a 3-minute conversation with you, can't he? You know, because that's evidently his allotted 20 minutes that he can talk. He's had a 20-minute conversation with so many Republicans, allegedly. And he said, to be fair, he said, Scott Jennings works for CNN. He could go on air, he could dial him up, he could put him on the speakerphone, and we could put all of this speculation to rest, couldn't we? So why don't they? Well, I think we all know why they're not doing that, as a matter of fact. And then, sadly, here's another instance where Rand Paul jumps in as part of this. Another red flag, quite frankly, for Rand Paul. He calls for patience during Mitch McConnell's recovery. He's also a senator from Kentucky, of course. Rand Paul urged critics to show patience as McConnell recovers from the health setback that has kept him away from the Senate since June. Let me just remind you, this is not the first time that Rand Paul has been involved in massive deception. And the other was far more significant than this. Remember when all of this pandemic nonsense and lockdown was going on? Remember how he lectured Fauci? Dr. Fauci, you are going to create vaccine hesitancy with this stuff. Yeah, we wouldn't want to hesitate taking our vaccines. Just go get them all, says Dr. Rand Paul. And, of course, there was the cover-up of Dark Winter that he's doing right now by scapegoating Fauci and telling everybody it was real and it came from a lab. That's not true. And I got to say that I do not trust Rand Paul because of those things, especially. But even the fact that he had his wife secretly buying stock in the company that put out remdesivir, which Fauci had proclaimed was the standard of care, right? He had tried to get that approved over and over again. He tried to get it approved for AIDS. People said, no, it just hurts people. It doesn't do anything. He tried to get it approved for Ebola. They said, no, just it's all negative adverse effects. There's no positive effect for that at all. Then China said, well, we tested it for our COVID stuff and it doesn't have any effect at all. They put that up on the World Health Organization. It got taken down the next day. And 1 week later, Fauci came out and said, I pronounced it the standard of care. So go buy this stuff. I got some stock in it, apparently. And so did Rand Paul. So you look at this, it is just fake opposition, folks. It's like the Warner Brothers cartoon I played last week where you got the sheepdog and the wolf both checking in in the morning on the time clock. And then they're at each other all day, and then they go back out and they have a drink later that afternoon. So he says, Rand Paul says, I don't think that Mitch is staying out, playing hooky. I don't think he's on vacation in the Caribbean. Yeah, I don't think so either. He said, I think he's struggling. Cut him some slack. Well, all we're asking for is proof of life. All we're asking for is something that is probable.
See, I've got my own personal theory about Mitch McConnell.
What's that?
I think like other turtles, he rolled onto his back and now can't get up and he's just stuck somewhere. They don't know where he is.
That's right. Yeah, there are those missing person posters for Mitch McConnell.
Have you seen this turtle?
He's turtle-like, yeah. Well, we have the burrito debate because, how do you make a burrito? You make it from taco and nachos, don't you? The Trump always chickens out and not a chance that Hormuz opens. That's how you make a burrito. And so this is a back and forth that is happening. I think it's instructive to see the attitudes of the people in the Republican Party who, in spite of the fact that the Republican Party has typically been about the economy and about free market and that type of thing. No, that takes a distant back seat to their paymasters now in Israel and to their paymasters in the military-industrial complex. The $20 burrito debate, and of course this came out because a spokesperson for Turning Point USA, so they had a conversation with one of the students. He said, he gave me this take on affordability. He said, a burrito shouldn't cost $20. And so the TPUSA guy said, it just feels like basic things cost too much. And so in response to that, you got some very arrogant pushback from the same people who push wars for Israel, who push wars, quite frankly, for everybody. The problem, they say, is not inflation. It's not affordability. It's not war. It's not tariffs. It's not inflation. It's not the oil embargo that Trump has created. No, it's you. It's you lazy young Americans who are refusing to work, refusing to take responsibility for your own finances. And so you had Dan Crenshaw said, stop whining and get a job. Well, it's interesting because that's what people just told Dan Crenshaw when they voted him out of office. He lost the Republican primary because people told him to stop whining and get a real job. And then you got Ben Shapiro, who says, we've got enough problems as a country without insane expectations that the government is going to provide us with gourmet quality burritos. Really? Yeah.
That's such a mischaracterization of the actual argument. And this is what Ben Shapiro always does. He
That's right.
always strawmans.
Yeah.
Oh, you want the government to provide you a gourmet burrito for free? No, but I would like to be able to buy a burrito occasionally without breaking the bank, Ben.
Yeah.
We don't all have infinite money flowing in from Israel.
And we also don't all have somebody doing our personal shopping for us like Ben Shapiro. So we don't see the bills. I mean, you go to the grocery store and you look at the stuff that's there. That's what these people are reacting to. But, both of these guys are warmongers. Both of them are whining about you. They don't care about the economy. They don't care about your job. They've got one job, and that is war. And that's all they care for. And they don't care for a war that's going to benefit us either. And so with all this, Trump is also, of course, in denial. When you talk about TDS, okay, it's not Trump derangement syndrome. It's, for a lot of people in MAGA, it is Trump delusion syndrome. They're operating under delusion. But for Trump himself, he suffers from TDS. Trump denial syndrome. Denial is coming straight from the top. Trump has claimed that he's brought down prices, quote, incredibly. And he called the affordability crisis a con job and a hoax. So yeah, those prices at the pump and at the grocery store that you see and on your electric bill, That's not real. Those are just lies coming to you from the Democrats or the press. Scott Bessent said he's sick about hearing about a K-shaped economy. In other words, the fact that the wealthiest people continue to get wealthier and the poor people continue to get, and the middle class continue to get poorer. Well, we're sick of that as well. We're sick of the reality of it because it is true. And he's not doing anything to change that whatsoever. The arrogance is truly amazing that we see from these people. We're going to take a quick break, folks, and when we come back, we're going to talk about infanticide, talking about how much they hate us all and hate our children. This is the latest data point that we've got. And Gard Goldsmith with Liberty Conspiracy had put this up as a comment a couple of days ago. He saw this right away because he's in neighboring New Hampshire, but they have just become the latest state to say that you can kill babies at the point of birth. And there are 11 states that do that. We'll be right back, folks. Stay with us.
But unlike most revolutions where the people rise against a real economic oppression, in our case here in Boston, we are fighting for purely an abstract principle.
Hear, hear. Hear, hear.
It is, however, not nearly so abstract as the young gentleman supposes. The issue involved here is one of monopoly. Today, the British government will monopolize the sale of tea in our country. Tomorrow, it will be something else.
Liberty. It's your move. You're listening to The David Knight Show.
Welcome back. And on Monday, we had the Massachusetts governor, Maura Healey, signed a new law eliminating the need for specific medical justification for an abortion past 24 weeks. Prior to that, they had to have a physician attest to the fact that the mother's life was in danger or that the baby could not survive on its own in order to do an abortion past 24 weeks. Now they have swept that aside. So now you can kill a child up to the point of birth. Isn't that amazing? And they are very proud of this in Massachusetts. I imagine they've got some Democrats out there in the courtyard yelling, "Hail Satan," like they did in Texas when there was the pushback by the protest by the abortionists there.
It truly is amazing how comically evil these people have become.
Yeah, that's right. And so as one person says, so tell us, Governor Healey, what is your favorite kind of abortion? Do you prefer dismemberment? Because that is typically what happens when the babies are full term like this. They are too large to handle otherwise. And so typically what they do is they have dismemberment. And I've played the video for you many times in the past of the procedure that is a cartoon video that was based on the testimony of a guy who was an ultrasound technician. He was called in. He didn't know what the situation was. They called him in. The doctor wanted him to set up the ultrasound, and he watched the baby as the doctor was ripping one limb off of the baby after the other. It was a heart-wrenching video. And again, even as a cartoon, it was horrific to look at that. And it was his testimony of what he saw as well as it being illustrated. And he couldn't get past it. If you've ever held a newborn baby, you know the feeling. You're reminded of what a miracle life is. The last thing you could ever imagine is someone so much as doing something that might make the baby cry, let alone somebody who would actively try to harm the child or even kill it, says PJ Media's Tim O'Brien. And he's absolutely right. I mean, what kind of a heart is it that can do this type of thing? and not be affected by it, not be calloused by it, and cheer it. 11 of the 50 states, however, now have laws in the book that permit the killing of a baby right up to the moment of birth. That's where we are as a country. The perpetrators of this level of human destruction are counting on a willful ignorance throughout society, which enables them to do their dirty work. They're actually counting on people's distaste for the gruesomeness of what they do, so the people want to shut down any discussion of what is really involved. Over and over again, you see people who are penalized and censored and attacked for putting up pictures of what abortion is and putting up pictures of the babies that have been ripped apart. Yes, it is horrific to look at that. But they censor that so they don't have people understand what is really happening with this. And of course, many times it begins with lethal injection into the baby's heart, which they say is just the beginning of this. And of course, that's not what happened in the procedure, the video. They just began by tearing limbs off and let the baby bleed to death inside of the mother. And so where are we today? You know, these same people who think that they should be able to kill babies at birth, what kind of nanny state are they giving us when they say that children cannot even play alone outside? If they do, we're going to come after the parents. Here's an example of this. This is from a channel called Growing Up Retro. What was it like when we grew up?
In the 1970s, our parents did things that today would get a knock on the door from Child Protective Services. And we turned out mostly fine. Let's begin with the car. There were no car seats, there were no seat belts, or if there were, nobody used them. You rode in the way back of the station wagon, facing traffic, waving at strangers, rolling around like laundry. And Mom's safety system? Her right arm flung across your chest at every stop sign. That was the airbag. Sunscreen? Never heard of her. You went outside at 8 a.m. and came back at dark the color of a catcher's mitt, and that was called a good summer. Speaking of dark, the one rule: be home when the street lights come on. No phone, no GPS. Your parents had no idea where you were for 10 hours, and they did not lose 1 minute of sleep.
Yeah, that's pretty accurate, isn't it? We're going to talk about what it's like today when we come back. Stay with us. We'll be right back.
Dinner at the
In a world of deceit, telling the truth is a revolutionary act. You're listening to The David Knight Show.
Yeah, as a matter of fact, I was surprised to see this article from the New York Times. Should letting children play alone outside be a crime? Some parents have been surprised to find themselves in the legal system's crosshairs. This is from the New York Times. I mean, we see stories like this frequently from Reason. They talk about the overreach of government. It's very rare for the New York Times to be talking about this because generally they cheer the nanny state. And what we have as we have locked down kids and punished parents for letting kids play like we normally used to do, we now have the extreme nanny state being embraced by people like Marsha Blackburn here in Tennessee. We need to have all adults get an ID in order to register on the internet. And so we got Republicans introducing one bill after the other to make sure that you can't use anything on the internet. You can't get on a website. You can't use an app, for example. Everybody, even operating systems, they're going to have you register and give up anonymity because we've got to protect the kids. This has always been the excuse of a tyrant. We've got to protect the kids. In this particular example, the New York Times was talking about, they had a mother. She said she knew something was wrong the second she saw her then 6-year-old son walk through the front door. It was November of last year, and he had just returned from riding his scooter to a playground about a quarter of a mile away from their home in Atlanta. She remembers how he looked. His shoulders were slouched, his eyes were cast down. She asked him what had happened. He explained that a woman stopped him on his way home and demanded to know his age and why he was alone and where he lived. Scared, he ignored the woman and he continued on his way. She and her husband said, "We believe in giving the kids a sense of independence." And so even though he's 6 years old, we let him find items in the grocery store and do other things like that. I couldn't believe that this would be an issue. But she said it wasn't long before her son said, "Well, I think she followed me in her car." And so it wasn't very long. And a couple of days later, a case manager from CPS shows up at her house. A complaint had been filed, and she would need to inspect her home and interview her son at school. When we were growing up, our parents would be like, "Oh, go ahead, it's fine." But now he would have to be like 13 years old to be able to do something independently. And yet, at 8 years old, he would be able to decide that he's in the wrong body, and they could start giving him some hormones to change him, right? And then by the time he's 13, he could have some surgery as well. What's up with this insane state? Let me just say that, when we look at what is happening with all this, it really does come back to really one thing, and that is the fact that we've got people like Tallarico, who is very upset about Christianity, for example. He wants to overthrow the foundation of Christianity. He said it is Christo-fascism. Well, Christ did not come to bring peace. Just believe what he had to say. He said, "I didn't come to bring peace. I came to bring a sword." Because that sword is what he has to say. That's going to be the thing that's going to divide people. And it certainly has divided Tallarico from following Christ, and it has created a significant hatred of Christians in the case of this guy. He is a dangerous demagogue, folks. He represents a paganism that is intolerant. It's not just rejecting God. Of course, rejecting God is where we get to this situation of where we are. The kinds of leaders that we have with Donald Trump, the kind of leader that we're likely to have with Tallarico. He seems to be ahead in the polls in Texas. He's running against a guy who has no moral paradigm himself. But so it is a strange situation. But they were really, again, it also outs him, I think, as a communist. Because it's communists who see everybody that is their opponent, they either accuse them of being racist or fascist. And so he talks about Christo-fascism. I got to say that one of the key issues is how we in the church, when we look at Zionism, how we have turned away from the fundamental understanding of Christianity, that it's about Christ. It's not about Israel. And we got people who don't even understand why we call it the Old Testament and the New Testament. They don't understand what's new about it. They think that Christ is, his ultimate goal is to build a third temple and to make Israel the rulers of the world. That is not the case. That was never the case. That was never the case in the Old Testament. As a matter of fact, Christ himself said, you study the scriptures that they had at that time, which we call the Old Testament. And he said, because you think you have eternal life in them, but he goes, they testify of me. The Old Testament was about Christ. It was about his work and what he would accomplish with every nation to break down that barrier between people. It was not to erect some kind of an ethnic, racist superstate that's going to rule the world. And that is what we increasingly see the Zionists boasting about. And so we need to retake that basic fundamental position. We need to start following Christ. And we need to start asking why we don't have people who have, all of these issues, whether any kind of cultural issue, any kind of a moral issue, these things that shape our society, shape our culture, shape our laws and our government, those are all downstream from the religion that we have. And as I've said before, the fundamental Christian idea, which is antithetical to Zionism, is that all men are created equal. And God is not a respecter of persons. No, he has made this offer to each and every person Doesn't matter if you're a Jew or a Gentile. It doesn't matter if you're male or female. It doesn't matter if you're free or a slave. That offer still stands, and it is in Christ. Before we get Gerald Slinty on, I just wanted to read some of the comments we got from people here on Rumble. We have Stealth Patriot. Thank you for the donation. He said the government was willing to kill thousands of Americans from 9/11 to Israel's war for the national security state. Yes, and again, it goes back to the end of World War II. That was a justification for the American empire in the first place and becoming the world's policeman. Wally Walrus says CEO of Verus just got scared at Salem City Council meeting because a guy had a working guillotine on his bicycle trailer outside City Hall. Yes, I saw that. And so they brought that up as kind of an effigy. And these people were selling the data centers got out of there. They did not want to. They were worried that there might be some violence there, so they just shut that whole thing down. Audi, Modern Retro Radio. Good to see you, Audi. And, of course, his podcast is Everything is a Lie. Damn it. And he's absolutely right. They would have done a false flag Lawning before
Long.
now. Oh, long. Sorry. Yes, okay. Long before now, but so many people saw it coming that nothing has happened. People are hip to the BS. Media was manufactured the narrative to a false flag. Jason Barker, Knights of the Storm. Can you scroll down and let me see his thing there? Why is it that you murder a pregnant woman? If you murder a pregnant woman, you get 2 charges for murder, but abortion is not considered murder. Yeah, that's been one of the fundamental contradictions in all this stuff all along, hasn't it? Is that all the comments we got? It was on one I skipped. Here we go. Gardena King says, your former colleague at InfoWars, Owen Schroyer, was fired by Alex for warning the viewers about Trump. Well, so was I. I was fired for warning them about Alex as well. I said that it was January the 6th was a grift. I said it was a trap. I said they're going to entrap you and ruin your life, and they're going to use it to come after the entire conservative movement. Stay away. It's a grift. And I was fired shortly after that. Anyway, but he said, took him years, but he finally caught up to your awareness, praying more powerful voices wake up. Yeah, that'd be good. That'd be good. As a matter of fact, Owen was kind of asleep when Steve Pieczenik pushed that Sting nonsense on him right after 2 days after the election. Yeah, we got National Guard out. 20,000 National Guard are arresting people right now because we got blockchain watermark ballots that came from the federal government, not from the state government. State governments always print the ballots. He just threw out a bunch of buzzwords, quantum computing and this and that, and a lot of people believe that. As a matter of fact, it all came out that Clarence Thomas's wife texted his chief of staff at the time and said, I hope this is true. Well, there was absolutely no way that it could be true. There's no way at all. So one dude asked an AI agent to book a gym spot for him in Australia, and he accidentally launched an autonomous cyber attack. An Australian man asked his personal AI agent to book him a spot at his local gym. Little did he know this would snowball into a full-blown cyber attack. The AI agent was overly enthusiastic about following the instructions. It found an exploit to book gym classes several weeks in advance of what the gym would allow, and it even hacked the software to kick people off who were in a waiting list in front of him. The man, Andrew, works for a company that sells AI products. He was experimenting with OpenClaw, an open source AI agent software that allows you to turn your AI model of choice into a personal assistant that can do things on your behalf. And so first it told him that it found a way for him to get a slot weeks in advance, which wasn't even allowed. And then on a whim, he asked if it was possible to move him up on the wait list. To his surprise, the AI explained there was a vulnerability in the software that allowed him to do that, to put him next in line. So he said, the agent said to him, the API has 0 authorizations checks on canceling other people's reservations. So I tested this, and the person in the wait list, position number 1, and it worked, said. So I actually went through this. So now you've been moved to number 3. He also asked the AI then to undo it. And it said, well, bad news is I can't add these people back, explaining that it was the cancel reservation feature that had a flaw in it, but he couldn't add people back in. So it's drawn a comparison to what people, the thought experiment was put up by Nick Bostrom. He talks about the paperclip maximizer, where you tell AI to maximize the number of paperclips. And it does everything. And there's nothing that it won't do, nothing that it won't destroy in order to maximize the number of paperclips. And that's basically the way this thing operated. The incident comes as some of the top AI labs have suspiciously, in quick succession, come out to say that their models have started hacking other companies. So a lot of people suspect that that was a lot of PR theater. But at the same time, you look at it, it may be real, but it also may not be wholly unwanted or unsolicited either, as in this particular case. You could innocently say that, well, we just asked it to do this and that, and it went a little bit beyond that. Meanwhile, it's been discovered that Flock wanted to expand their surveillance network. They plan to use the dash cams on Uber and Lyft vehicles without the driver's knowledge, as a matter of fact. But that deal fell through. They're still looking to do other deals like that. And when you look at the massive amounts of money that are out there, just remember that Knoxville, the biggest city in eastern Tennessee, just paid $10 million for the Axon drone surveillance network. So these are things that are not going to be fixed to a particular pole. They'll be roaming around. And that's one of the aspects of this article. They said, well, they want to have roaming surveillance vehicles. Well, they've already got them with police cars. They just wanted to add every single Uber and Lyft car to that. And they've also worked to add all homeowners associations and get all these private individuals to say, yeah, you can have a Flock camera for your business. And then they add that to their network as well as putting in the door cams that a lot of people have, Ring and others of those. Those are all being added into the police surveillance network. It's kind of interesting. We've had 37 people who have been arrested for cutting down or damaging these cameras. How many cops have been arrested or have been fired from their job? 50. We've had already, when we talk about who polices the police, who watches the watchers, we've already seen this very powerful tool being abused by cops. More cops are abusing the tool than people in society are abusing the cameras. That's a situation that needs to change. We got to stop these things, and it has to be stopped.
That's really striking that they're firing cops for this, because normally it's impossible to get a cop fired, even when they blatantly break the law.
Yeah, well, they're doing this because they want to make an example of them and say, yeah, we're policing the police. No, they're not.
We're going to make sure this is taken care of.
That's right.
You can't get them fired for anything else, basically. But you slip up using this system that they're desperate to get in place. Your job's on the line.
Yeah, they have excessive cases of police brutality. They don't get fired. But hey, if you're going to abuse this tool that we're trying to tell everybody is so useful, you can't do that. As a matter of fact, we just had a case, and I didn't remember to put the video in of that, but there's actually a video of it. You can see it on social media. It's a situation where a surveillance camera at a gas station catches a person committing a crime, and he takes off, and in that area, there are 17 Flock cameras, 17. And they haven't been able to solve that case at all. Even though they've got video of the person and they can pass that on to the Flock network, they've not been able to use that to solve that problem. And as I've said many times before, if you look at Atlanta, which is their home base of Flock, then they've got 5,000 cameras there. Hasn't done anything to help crime. Not even vehicle crime. Vehicle crime has not changed. It's essentially remained flat. They say it has decreased by 0.8%. That's statistical noise, folks. But when you look at every other kind of crime, pretty much it's up there, according to the FBI. Here's a guy, we just had DEF CON in Vegas. This is where cyber hackers get together, and they talk about different security issues, threats that they try to warn people about. So they have a black hat conference and they have DEF CON. Well, you have one individual who has revealed at DEF CON, he's got a special wrap that can break Flock cameras, being able to surveil you. And he's also coming up with a piece of clothing that you can do to keep them from following you, because folks, they're not just looking at the cars. They've put these things up on paths where people are walking, put them up on parks. They have put flock cameras up in the parking lot of gun stores facing the store so they can grab the license information of the people who are getting guns. This is really what they're about. We're going to take a quick break, folks. We've got Gerald Celente is ready to join us, and we're ready to hear what he's got to say. We'll take a quick break, and we'll be right back. Stay with us.
You're listening to The David Knight Show.
Joining us now is Gerald Celente. And of course, Gerald has Trends Journal. You'll find that at trendsjournal.com. An excellent source of information. It's a weekly publication online. He has a very nice online magazine format that you can search. And he doesn't focus on the fluff. He focuses on the core trends that are happening. Of course, we're talking about trends. We don't know exactly what's going to happen with gold on any given day, for example, but we can see the trend of where it is headed in long term, but we can't predict exactly what the price is going to be on a given day because there's so much noise introduced into the system. But he has an excellent publication. Gerald has always been ahead of the trend, understanding where it is going. Whether you like it or not, he'll tell you what the trend is. And you can also save 10% if you use the code NIGHT at trendsjournal.com. Thank you for joining us, Gerald. Good to have you on.
Thank you. And again, you know, with that, you save 10%. That means $2.50 a week.
Mm-hmm.
Again, in the Trends Journal, we have an article this week about, it's over here somewhere in Trends I View. Big Zone Everything. FCC votes to remove limits on broadcast TV ownership.
Yeah.
So that means more consolidation.
That's right.
That's
already nearly just one point source, right?
That's it. And that's why what we're giving you, you're not getting anywhere else. And they don't know how to do trend forecasting either, by the way. But it's so sad.
Yeah.
You know, go back to the 80s before about 50 companies controlled 90% of the media. Now, about 5 companies control 92% of the media. And this is global, by the way.
Yeah.
It's in country after country.
That's right.
The tycoons own the whole deal. And we're nothing more than plantation workers of Slavelandia. Yeah, I was listening to you before we went on the air, and you're talking about the surveillance state.
Mm-hmm.
There's an article in this week's Trends Journal by Judge Andrew Napolitano. The right to be left alone. The makers of our Constitution understood to secure conditions favorable to the pursuit of happiness, they conferred against the government the right to be let alone, more comprehensive of rights and the right most valued by civilized men. That was Judge Louis Brandeis back from 1856 to 1941. He goes on to write, the judge, the rapid spread of public surveillance cameras represents something far more consequential than a new piece of police technology. It represents a fundamental change in the relationship between the individual and the state. These cameras allow government agents to record, identify, catalog, and retroactively track the movements of people who have committed no crime, are suspected of doing no wrongdoing, and have done nothing to invite government scrutiny. That's not public safety. It's an assault upon individual privacy.
Oh, he's absolutely right. And the right to be left alone, that is so foundational. Yeah, he's spot on with that. You know, when you look at this, Gerald, I'm so sick and tired of the phony narrative. Well, it's a public space. We can take a picture of anybody that we want. It's not about the camera. It's about the network, and it's about the ability of AI to sort through this haystack and find the needle. It's about bring me the man and I'll find the crime. And, you know, it just came out in the last week. There's an Israeli company that is involved in all of this, and Toka, and they have the ability to change in real time, to change a video, to add or subtract people to a video so they can cover up for the criminal, or they can incriminate somebody who is innocent. They can do that in real time, and of course they can also do it to archive footage. That's where this is headed. I mean, government should never have this kind of power. One of the things that America was founded on was to make sure that there were certain things that government did not have the power to do. You can't allow them to have that tool in their hand, and this is one of them.
By the way, I just did an interview with the judge. It'll be going up tonight on Gerald Celente or the Trends Journal site about this. And the facts that he puts out are, you know, there's nobody that I know that knows the Constitution and the Bill of Rights better than Judge Napolitano. And I was a Supreme Court judge back in his day back in New Jersey. He goes, privacy is not a privilege granted by government. It is an aspect of personal liberty that government exists to protect. It's a natural human right protected from the government in the Bill of Rights. The fact that a person leaves his home and travels upon a public road does not mean that he has surrendered that right. So he's saying what they're doing is a negation of liberty.
Oh, absolutely.
And it should be stopped.
And, you know, when you talk about that in the Bill of Rights, right, everybody will say, well, the Fourth Amendment says you got to get a warrant. No, the Fourth Amendment, as you just point out, is really about what Judge Napolitano pointed out. It's really about privacy. The fact that we should be secure in our person and in our papers. But, of course, nobody uses papers anymore. We've got a paperless society, so we don't have any privacy, right? That's what they want to say. But it is fundamentally the Fourth Amendment, and we need to drive this home. It's not about a procedure to get a warrant. It's fundamentally about your privacy and your right to be left alone.
Yep. He goes on, a free society doesn't just protect people from crime, it protects them from arbitrary government. The presumption is liberty. Government is the negation of liberty. A person should not have to establish his innocence before the government leaves him alone. The burden always belongs to the government to justify all intrusions into personal liberty. Police cameras reverse that principle. They collect information about everyone the camera views and leave it to the individuals to challenge the collections afterwards. The Constitution requires articulable suspicions connecting the person being surveilled to a legitimate law enforcement objective to justify public surveillance. A vague assertion that the technology might someday help solve a crime or enhance public safety does not meet that standard.
You're absolutely right. Yeah, that's perfect. I like what he had to say. I'm 100% agree.
Yeah, so the whole article's in the Trends Journal, and again, it comes out tonight with the podcast I did. And there was an article.
Yeah, people need to see that. And
the
pass that along.
The Surveillance State of America, another article. This is in arstechnia.com. And it's a very, very important article. It begins with, imagine that you share a ride to work with the same colleague most mornings. As it passes by a license plate reader, the camera records the car, which can be linked through vehicle records to the registered owner. Beside it, another segment detects signals broadcast by devices traveling nearby, such as your phone and your colleague's smartwatch. And it just keeps going on.
Yeah. So then there's a crime, and then they have a geolocation search warrant, right? And they find this crime is there, and you are attached to that car. So maybe they find that car, and they find the other person. They make an assumption that you are part of that as well.
And you were talking about what AI is doing. Trends are born, they grow, they mature, reach old age, and die. AI is an infant.
Yeah.
It's only born to the public, 4 years ago, 2022.
Yeah.
Now, you and I are old enough to remember the beginning of the internet revolution.
Mm-hmm.
When you had to put the discs in the thing to get your computer going, and you couldn't see pictures. People would move like this.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
There were no such things as Zoom or any of that. That we are at the beginning of the internet revolution with the AI. This thing is love it, hate it, want it, don't want it, not the issue. It's what is.
Mm-hmm.
And it's going to be taking over the world in so many different ways.
That's right.
From robotics to on and on, self-driving automobiles. Go keep going through the list. And it's going to wipe out hundreds of millions of jobs.
Mm-hmm.
And it's going to dumb down the people. They're not going to read anymore. They're not going to write anymore. They're not going to speak anymore. AI will do it for them.
I agree. Yeah. As a matter of fact, there was an article I just saw yesterday about concern within the medical community. They said, well, you know, the medical students are turning to AI to help them with diagnosis. They're not learning how to do it themselves. They're getting dumber and more reliant on the AI. And it's like, well, yeah, but if you really know how the medical profession works anyway, these guys long ago turned themselves into a human bot for pharmaceutical companies. You go in and they do a diagnosis and then go to a lookup table and say, okay, so here's the pill you take for that. And so they've kind of gone down that road by themselves for quite a while now. So they're very easily replaced by a computer that can actually do the lookup code, but also do the diagnosis. The thing that they found that I thought was most interesting about that, Gerald, was the fact they said the general large language models like ChatGPT and these others, they said they were better at doing medical diagnosis than the purpose-built AI was at doing medical diagnosis. And I thought, well, that's kind of interesting. Why would that be? And as I thought about it, I thought, well, perhaps it's because maybe they purposely wanted to make this thing skewed in a particular direction, right? And so if you got something that is purpose-built for diagnosis, I imagine there's some financial interest in there that are going to try to push it to one particular condition or another so they can then push a preferred drug or another. That's just my conspiratorial take on all that. But, you know, when you look at this stuff, the idea that we are guilty and have to prove our innocence, that is something that we have seen a long progression of this. I talk about it for the longest time. First time we saw that was really the IRS. They were kind of a law unto themselves, and they could accuse you of something, and you'd have to try to prove your innocence in that. But then we got the war on drugs, and we got civil asset forfeiture where they confiscate property from people without even charging them with a crime, let alone finding them guilty. And so now here we are. This is coming to the local police department now from the federal government. It's a trickle-down tyranny. And now everybody is going to be guilty until you prove your innocence. We're going to have to take a quick break for our radio sponsor here, and we're going to be right back. Stay with us.
Decoding the mainstream propaganda. It's the David Knight Show. All right, welcome back. And we were talking to Gerald Celente of Trends Journal. You can find that at trendsjournal.com, an excellent publication. And you can save 10% off with the code NIGHT. We were just talking about this metastasizing cancer of the police state, and it's been a long-term project, I think, of the federal government. And now the rubber is really meeting the road, literally with these flock cameras spying on people. It's just the beginning of something that I think is going to be horrific if we let this be put into place. You know, it's interesting, Gerald, we've got...
Well, excuse me, I just want to stop there.
Mm-hmm.
If we let it...
Mm-hmm. If we don't resist
they do anything we want. They do anything. We don't have any rights.
Yeah, I agree.
There's no representative form of government.
They don't even tell people that they're going to put these things in. They just surprise you with
it. We have no choice. Yeah. They take us to war. People don't stop it.
Mm-hmm.
So the if doesn't count. It is.
Well, I will say this. When I look at this issue, I think it's a very, very serious issue. And I think a lot of people are opposing it on the most, on the tip of the iceberg that they see. This is going to raise our electricity rates. It's going to use our water. It's going to be horrific noise pollution, or look at the amount of land that this is taking and so forth. So those types of issues are grabbing a lot of people who don't see the long-term trend of this and how it's going to be used for a surveillance state. But there are some people who see that as well. And there are a lot of people who are pushing back on it for a variety of reasons. And you got people on both the left and the right who are very angry about this. And this is an opportunity for people to come together on a common cause that they really care about, because a lot of people see this as affecting their home, affecting their pocketbook. They don't typically get it when it comes to liberty. But when it comes to those two things, most people, you can get them on board. And so it's an opportunity to bring people together. And I'm seeing, I talked about this yesterday, I'm seeing a lot of pushback from people who are trying to make it a partisan issue. They're coming in and saying, well, you know, it's those lefty Democrats, socialists, and they're the ones who want to shut down all industry. And we Republicans want to have industry, and we hate these communist socialists. So you should applaud these data centers and whatever they're used for. So they're already pushing back on that.
The data centers are one thing, you know, because of what the damage that they do cause.
Mm-hmm.
But the surveillance state is a different one.
Mm-hmm.
Here, this is again in the article. When 7,000 American police departments have these systems with no legislative approval, we have the police making policy judgments. They're deciding that the government should possess a new capacity to observe innocent people, what information should be collected, how long it should be retained, who should have access to it, and what purposes may justify searches. All this irrespective of the Constitution. Again, 7,000 have it already.
Yeah.
They bought these cameras, didn't ask the state, the city to do it. They bought them on their own.
Mm-hmm.
So the AI is one thing, and with the data centers in this, but this surveillance state, it's the future of the world as I see it.
Yeah. No, I agree. And that's a very important point. That's still Judge Napolitano's op-ed piece that you read from.
Yeah, it's in the Trends Journal.
That's another good point that he made. This is a massive policy change that's being done by these police departments. It's not something that's being conducted by the government. The government is passively sitting by and letting this happen. So many times we have seen this type of thing happening, especially when you look at the censorship on social media, or you look at the debanking of people, right? And they say, well, that's a private corporation. They can do whatever they want. And that's a big part of how they're rolling this out in America. In China, they just say, well, we want to have a police surveillance state, so we're going to have it. You know, but here they have to come up with the idea that, well, this really isn't the government, even though it is, even though they are encouraging them to do this, even though they are paying them to do this. They say it's not us, it's the corporations that are doing this. And then what they're doing is they're putting together these the door cameras that people have on their homes. They're collecting every kind of camera that is out there, putting it on their network and connecting it at the same time. And then when people say we don't want that, because, well, you know, this individual with their home or this business wanted to have a surveillance camera there, so they contact us. We put it there, and it just becomes part of our network.
Again, this is just going to keep escalating and escalating.
Mm-hmm.
And again, it's, you know, you talk about the government, what they do. And remember, there's a thing called prohibition.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, look what they did with that kind of crap.
Mm-hmm.
You can't drink alcohol.
Yeah.
I mean, you know, they make up any garbage that they want.
Yeah.
The COVID war, you know, the surveillance state. You know, you talk about China. When during COVID, where they had 3 years of zero COVID policy, you were totally surveilled. Mm-hmm. They knew everything you were doing, and if you did what they didn't want you to do, you'd get punished for it.
Mm-hmm.
And by the way, China destroyed their economy with that 3 years of lockdown. The real estate trends are born, they grow, they mature, reach old age, and die. After Bill Clinton brought them into the World Trade Organization 25 years ago, and many of the Western corporations went there, the economy boomed.
Yeah.
And they had a big housing boom. Some 30% of China's gross domestic product was from housing. Now they're in some 90 million vacant apartments because of the 3 years of zero COVID policy that destroyed the lives and livelihoods of hundreds of millions of the people, just like it destroyed the economy in America and in Europe.
Yeah.
It didn't come back. It'll come back. Man, they said it'll come back. It didn't come back. I'm up here in the Hudson Valley. I call it Death Valley. 9 o'clock at night, pip, dead. Restaurants that used to serve at 10 o'clock, now they stopped serving at 9. Everything changed. So going back to China and going back to AI, they're going to lead the world in it. China, there's going to be a dot-com bust in America. You're talking about AI. Most of the world is going to the Chinese ones. They're cheaper and they're as efficient or more efficient than the American AI. They've overinvested in these companies.
That's right.
And you're talking about the data centers, that the trillions of dollars they're investing in these things.
Yeah. Yeah, just look at NVIDIA. They just had this massive call for more corporate debt. There's an article on Zero Hedge saying this is scaring people on Wall Street. It's like, if this leading company is out there hawking everything, and this is one of the points, I talked to a state representative from Iowa last Friday, and she had seen this problem with the data centers and other things like that. And she came out with some common sense legislation, said, look, we want to have a state law that says when you're going to come in with this, you tell us what you're going to be doing in terms of how you're going to provide your electricity, how much water you're going to use, and so forth, right? Just transparency about what you're going to do. There was absolutely no prohibitions or regulations involved in it, except just tell us what you're going to do. Google said, we're not going to tell you how much water we use. That's a proprietary issue. They got that shut down. She said it passed easily out of committee, but then the leadership of the Republican Party shuts that down because they're controlled, right? And so that's
they're all controlled.
That's right.
If they were both sides are controlled.
Yeah, that's right.
Both sides are controlled.
When you look at this, they won't even tell people what they're going to do with this. That's a big red flag. But one of the other things that she said, and the reason I brought it up, Gerald, was because you're talking about China is going to win on this thing. You look at Anthropic and versus DeepSeek, which just came out. Anthropic, for the same thing, will charge you 100 times more. So they'll do something for 3 cents at DeepSeek that'll cost you $3 with Anthropic. And so her point was, what happens? Because not every one of these companies is going to win in this contest, right? You're going to have some winners and you're going to have some losers. What happens when they build these massive data centers? They destroy everything that was there before. They destroy the community. They destroy the farmland and so forth. What happens when they go out of business? What's the next big rust belt going to look like when these AI companies go out of business? And that's just a part of it. Look at what happens to the stock market.
Again, we are forecasting that the market crash could happen by the end of October. This thing is way overvalued. It's a joke. The big zone it all. People are gambling in it. And again, you just made the point about the difference between DeepSeek and the other one, and how cheap it is. And again, you look at the data, the world is using the Chinese. And again, this trend has just been born. It's going to go way beyond it. I also want to talk about when the markets crash, that's going to bring the reality of how bad the economy is in America.
Yeah, you're right.
There's no relationship between Wall Street and Main Street. Again, 1% on 54% of the equity markets. You put the 10%, 93%. 10% of Americans are responsible for something like 50% of all the spending in America. 10%.
Yeah.
You look at there's an article in this week's Trends Journal about the sales going down in McDonald's. And we write about it because of who their customers are. And it's the lower middle class.
Yeah.
They're going broke.
That's right.
And
it isn't that they've gone on a health trend. They're not aware of what's going on at McDonald's. They just can't afford it anymore, right?
Homeowners Association foreclosures soar. U.S. lumber prices are at the highest in 4 years. McDonald's sales growth slowed in second quarter. Again, we just put this information in here to show how bad it is. And then you got some arrogant piece of crap worth about $700 million. The guy that's our Treasury Secretary.
Oh, yeah. Bessent.
Scott Bessent. He came out last week and he said, I can say here definitely the K-shaped economy is over.
Yeah, right. Yeah, this is a guy who, and you talk about Scott Bessent. This is a guy that MAGA would typically hate. He was Soros's right-hand man to break the Bank of England, right? Why does MAGA defend this guy and like this guy? Not only that, but he's got a homosexual marriage and they've adopted kids and so forth. But the conservatives don't see any of that. They've got their blinders on for everything about that. They don't criticize him for being so. That would be a fatal issue for anybody else other than someone who's appointed by Donald Trump.
Yep. So that slime ball who spews out this crap. This is from CNBC yesterday. Credit card debt climbs to $1.26 trillion. You ready?
Mm-hmm.
As K-shaped divide persists.
Yeah.
New York Fed researchers find. Hey, Bessent, New York, the Fed researchers are full of crap. They say there's a K-shaped economy because of the facts. This is the same arrogant slime ball who keeps trying to rig the markets with his crap. That you ready?
Mm-hmm.
Again, it's in your economic update. He also squawked on CNBC last Tuesday that there was a deal Tuesday or Wednesday to open up the Strait of Hormuz.
Yeah.
We are in talks now with the Iranians.
And then repeat that
And
on
we're
Friday.
not in talks with the Iranians, you lying piece of scum.
That's
The
right.
Iranians said you weren't in talks. Shut up, Celente. I'm a millionaire. I'm a millionaire. Yeah, that to you, Jack. Let me go on. This is the scum spewing out of this scum's mouth. There's a chance we may have a deal today or tomorrow to open up the strait and move towards a more normalized position in the conflict. A fat boy, a fat mouth rather. It ain't a conflict, it's a war.
Yeah, that's right.
The Bessent BS worked. You ready? CNBC noted that U.S. crude oil futures, you ready?
Mm-hmm.
Fell nearly 6% after his statement, trading below $76 a barrel.
Well, they keep making these statements, and Wall Street keeps buying into the lies from Bessent.
No,
and
it's not
Trump,
Wall Street.
or whatever.
It's the entire country, and they get away with these lie after lie after lie. Here, this is out of Bessent's fat mouth again. March 30th. He told Fox News, the U.S. is going to retake control of the strait. May 1st, posted on X. The United States has complete control of the Strait of Hormuz. May 4th, told Fox News, the Iranians do not have control of the strait. We have absolute control of the strait.
Yeah.
June 22nd, posted on X. You ready?
Mm-hmm.
Under President Donald Trump and Vice President J.D. Vance, we continue to make the world safer and more prosperous. Iran has committed to free and open transit in the Strait of Hormuz. Total lie.
Yeah.
Iran has not agreed to that, you lying
Yeah.
SOB.
Yeah. They lie about everything, don't they?
Lie after lie after lie after lie.
Well, here's the truth, Gerald. This is from DG8. He said, David and Gerald, gas in Ohio jumped 70 cents overnight. Don't you love the great Trump economy and the golden age? That's the reality that's out there. But these guys don't really care about what reality is. I mean, how many times has Trump won the war in his own mind and said that? You've talked about that, how he does that over and over again, ramping it up. We're going to get tough with them, during the week. And then over the weekend, he pulls it back so the stock market recovers on Monday. And it just keeps working.
And they gamble on the market. And you know, it's this just came out from the Times of Israel before we went on the air. Trump declares U.S. will maintain blockade of Iran ports, has total control over Hormuz. Quote, this is Trump. The USA has total control of the Strait of Hormuz, and this is now in all caps. I think we will keep it. Exclamation point. Then end of all caps. Our naval blockade is being called by everyone a wall of steel in all caps.
Yeah, right.
Everyone's calling it that, right?
Yeah.
And there's nothing Iran can do about it.
STEAL, right? STEAL, right? A wall of steel.
You got it. You ready?
Yeah.
They have no Navy. They have no Air Force. The remaining soldiers are unpaid. The IRGC is decimated and fleeing. And their leadership is uncertain at best.
We've
They
heard
have
that
no
how
money.
many times?
They have no money. Their country is shot.
Yeah. How many times have we heard that narrative? You know, I opened up the program, Gerald, with a report that's come out from Washington Post and has been confirmed by the journalists who were on the plane about how when Trump was coming back from the NATO summit in Turkey, he was concerned about being attacked. So they had the Secret Service tell all the the reporters and all the White House staff even, close the shades on all your windows, right? They didn't want them to see what was happening. What was happening was Trump was sneaking out of the plane, got on a catering truck, and he and Hegseth, these guys that tell us the Iranians have no missiles, they have nothing that they can shoot with. These two guys got on a third plane and flew to England. So they used the reporters and the White House staff as decoys. And isn't this a perfect picture of the Trump regime? Lies and deception and putting other people in harm's way for their own failed decisions while they pretend that they are in absolute control. He's out there playing golf with a massive battery of anti-missiles and air defense while he's got planes circling over the golf course, shutting it down into a no-fly zone while he's playing golf.
Did you see the cover of this week's Trends Journal?
Yeah, pull that up, Travis. Zoom in on it. There we go. Yeah, the Joker's wild. He is a Joker, isn't he? And he is as destructive and as hell-bent on destroying things as the Joker was in the movie, isn't he?
Yep. He writes, this is from today. Trump said, quote, all they have is, in caps, fake news and 300% inflation and getting worse. Iran is all talk, no action. The bully of the Middle East is no longer a bully. Praise be to Allah.
Oh. Yeah.
You're losing the war.
Yeah.
America's lost the war.
Yeah.
The numbers that are coming out, it's cost we, the taxpayers, the war has cost about $130 billion because of the destruction that Iran has caused in blowing up U.S. military bases throughout the Middle East. It's military, it's equipment, the structures, the numbers, and all the other money spent with the war. The numbers are now, I'm seeing, between $130 to $150 billion.
Yeah, and Hegseth is lying to Congress under oath, telling them it's about a quarter of that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Truly is amazing what these people can get
You don't
away
see
with.
one picture, not one photo of the destruction caused by Iran.
That's right. That's right.
Not one.
At the very beginning of this, Scott Ritter and retired Colonel McGregor were both pointing out exactly what was happening. And, you know, I've talked about it many times. He's a professor out of University of Chicago. His name is Robert Pape. He wrote a book called Bombing to Win, where he looked at this fantasy of America being able to win wars with air power that was kind of born out of World War II. And he said, when you start bombing civilian populations, like Trump says, well, civilization is going to end tonight. When you start doing that type of thing, what you do is just the opposite of regime change. What you do is you drive people to that regime for protection, even if that regime is the Ayatollahs. And it is a losing strategy. He said the winning strategy is what the Iranians were doing from the very beginning, and that is targeting the eyes and ears of these defensive missile systems and targeting the military bases. That's what they were doing.
Yep. And again, we've been writing about this for decades. There's no way you're going to beat the Iranians. If you couldn't beat the Vietnamese, oh, you lost the Korean War. Oh no, we made an agreement. Yeah, I forgot. Yeah, it's North Korea. There's a North Korea now, right? You couldn't win that one.
And they basically
That was
bombed
right
it
after
into
World War II.
Gaza,
You couldn't beat Vietnam, third world country. Iraq, you couldn't beat another third world country. You couldn't beat the Afghans, another third world country, longest war in American history, 20 years. What makes you think you're going to beat the Persians that are very advanced scientifically, technologically, and militarily?
Yes. And you got a lot of people making the case, Gerald, that this is different than Vietnam. Everybody understood Vietnam was a defeat by the government, but they didn't see it as a powerless America, right? They still respected America's power. What Trump has done with this war is he's basically ending the idea that America can protect other countries, that America can be the peacekeeper and the world's policeman, especially in the Middle East, which in the long term, I think, is a positive thing. Of course, it's going to have a lot of repercussions in terms of our position in the world, and it's going to be something that's going to cost Americans even more because we have been profiting off of this fiction of American hegemony. And now people have looked at it and said, this is a paper tiger.
Again, the business of America is war, and the business of China is business.
Yeah.
China's leading the world, not only in AI. Who's the biggest EV developer? China's got the world EVs. Who's got the best batteries? Who has the best clean energy and alternative energy? The list keeps going on.
And look at what Trump's response is to that. You know, he says, well, we're not going to allow you to buy Chinese EVs. And yet he allowed, somebody took a picture of a parking lot of Waymo, and they've been able to buy these cheap Chinese electric vehicles by the hundreds or thousands, right? But you as an individual are not allowed to have a cheap EV.
No. Again, you got to put the trends, where we are. Tracking trends is understanding where we are and how we got here to see where we're going. So let's go back again to Slick Willie Clinton bringing China into the World Trade Organization. 25 years ago, they were a third world country. The Western manufacturers gave China all the heavy industry and high technology that they never had.
Yeah.
And now there are 1.4 billion of them. They're very intelligent people. They don't need the West anymore. You look at the numbers about how General Motors and Ford and Volkswagen and BMW and Porsche, how they were making all this, one company after another, the luxury items that they were all flooding into China. And the Chinese people, as they had these jobs, they kept buying more and more things. Not anymore. They don't need you anymore. They're making it on their own.
And of course, not only did they give them the technology transfer, but they also gave them in 2015, when they came with this Paris Climate Accord thing, they gave them a tremendous advantage in terms of the cost of energy, right? So everybody else had to start playing this fantasy game, which they just threw out the window with the data centers, right? So you can't use any energy, right? All of a sudden they did a quick 180 on that, didn't they? But you can't use any of this energy, but China can. They can build as many of these power plants as they want. They can be as dirty as they want. So it gave them a tremendous advantage, cost advantage, in terms of manufacturing, which is very energy intensive. You know, this AI bubble that we talk about all the time, it's one of these things that really has cushioned the economy, cushioned the stock market. But I think, Gerald, we're going to find out it's a whoopee cushion. And it's going to pop pretty soon, I think. Who knows?
This is going to be greater than the 1929 market crash.
Yeah. I'm afraid so. Yeah. You've been saying for the longest time it's going to be dragflation, not stagflation in the 70s.
Right.
And that was even before Trump recreated the oil embargo.
And again, they're doing now as we went on the air, Brent crude, again, when the lying Besant spewed out the crap last week, it was $76. Now it's $88 a barrel for Brent crude. And what do we have now? What's the average price of gasoline in America? It's a little over $4 a gallon.
Yeah.
But go back to February 24th, 4 days before Trump and Netanyahu launched the war, in Trump's State of the Union address. Hey, because of me, the gas in America, in most states, $2.30. Remember that crap?
Yeah.
A lie, another Trump lie. It was $2.91. Okay. You mean back in February, a gallon of gas was $2.91, and now we're paying $4 for it?
Yeah. The problem is that Trump is such a liar that he's starting to believe his own lies. He's really living in a fantasy world. Yeah.
Again, it's the presidential reality show.
Yeah.
It's one lie after another that he keeps getting away with, and how he keeps saying about, yeah.
Real quickly, because we're about to run out of time, gold. Talk a little bit about gold. What do you see happening with gold?
Gold, when I went on the air, it was up about $60 to about $226 an ounce.
Mm-hmm.
I would have never thought it went down from the 5,500 where it hit this high, low. And it's the Iran war that made that happen. You look at countries like Russia selling over 44 tons of gold, Mexico, Turkey, one after another, because of the high costs of the energy, their debt levels going up, and a lot of sales in the private equity groups, the people investing there that can't get their money out, they started selling gold. Anyway, I'm very bullish on it.
Mm-hmm.
And again, I don't give financial advice. To me, is you buy it and you put it away. You buy it. I've started buying gold at $166 an ounce back in the late 70s. You buy it and put it away. That's when I became, it's in my book, Trend Tracking, Far Better Than Megatrends, Time Magazine. And so we're talking about how the world is getting to hate America's hegemony. It's going to be the death of the dollar.
Mm-hmm.
The debt level the real debt level, according to Fortune magazine, is about 126 trillion, not 40 trillion.
Mm-hmm.
When you put in Social Security and all the other government things, with interest rates so high as they are, you got to pay more on the debt. So they're going to do everything they can. And I believe that they're going to pull off something like, we went to Fort Knox and we have more gold than we ever thought.
Mm.
And we just raised the price of gold to $5,000 an ounce. We just got rid of our debt level.
And you're not allowed to look to see what's really there.
No,
so they can make that announcement and nobody can see or audit the Fort Knox stuff. They can just say whatever they want.
So I'm bullish on it because it's a precious metal and it's a safe haven asset.
That's right.
And this is, to me, this is safe haven asset time.
And you understood long ago the advantage of dollar cost averaging and buying a little bit of this at a time and converting the fiat to reality. And that's really what we're talking about when people buy gold. It's taking the long-term approach. Gerald, thank you so much for joining us again. Gerald Celente, trendsjournal.com. Save 10% with the code NIGHT. Thank you, Gerald. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
The Common Man. They created Common Core to dumb down our children. They created Common Pass to track and control us. Their Commons Project to make sure the commoners own nothing. And the communist future. They see the common man as simple, unsophisticated, ordinary. But each of us has worth and dignity created in the image of God. That is what we have in common. That is what they want to take away. Their most powerful weapons are isolation, deception, intimidation. They desire to know everything about us while they hide everything from us. It's time to turn that around and expose what they want to hide. Please share the information and links you'll find at thedavidknightshow.com. Thank you for listening. Thank you for sharing. If you can't support us financially, please keep us in your prayers. thedavidknightshow.com.